Well, hey, you guys, here I am once again with another movie review. So, I feel like this was, because remember how I said that I was trying to watch some newer movies that I'd been hearing some kind of buzz about and whatnot? So, this was kind of another one along those lines. This was a movie that I had heard a little bit about. I'd seen a lot of other horror channels covering it, and it was available to watch on Shudder, just like the previously discussed Moon Garden, which was one of the last movie reviews that I did. So this movie here is called Rebirth, and this is the feature-length directorial debut of Laura Moss. Now, this movie, I guess it premiered back at Sundance, the Sundance Film Festival in early 2023, and also got a limited theatrical release. I don't think it played anywhere around here. Hardly anything does. Not where we are, because we live kind of rural. But I guess it was right around August or September of 2023, that came out in the theaters. But like I said, it didn't play anywhere around here. I didn't even know that it got a theatrical release, but apparently it did. So this movie, clearly influenced by Frankenstein, much like the previously discussed Poor Things, which was another movie that I reviewed recently. This is kind of its own animal, though. It's sort of a body horror slash medical drama, I want to say. The cool thing about it is it really doesn't go in the way that you expect it to, given the story. Also has two excellent lead performances. The two main actresses in this are phenomenal. They're really good. I've seen this compared to a David Cronenberg film, especially maybe kind of his newer stuff like Crimes of the Future, which I guess that's a pretty good call. I've also seen it compared to Reanimator, but I'm gonna say that Rebirth is not a horror comedy. It does have some black humor in it, but it's not supposed to be a horror comedy. So in that sense, it's not like Reanimator, but I can get why people made that comparison. I kind of feel like it's a really outstanding psychological horror film as well. It kind of examines the lengths that a mother will go to for her child, and also kind of the moral boundaries that people are willing to cross, when they want a particular goal or when something really important to them is on the line, I guess. So the two main characters seem like polar opposites. So you have Dr. Rose Casper, who's played by Marin Ireland, and she's this very cold, very standoffish pathologist. She's really antisocial. She's very kind of rude, I guess, or maybe brusque, you know what I mean? Very logical. You get the impression that she became a pathologist because she's a lot happier hanging out with dead people than living ones, you know what I mean? Because she doesn't have any idea how to relate to living people. And then you have Celia Morales, who's played by Judy Reyes. And she is very warm, very outgoing, very gregarious. She's an obstetrics nurse, and she is basically always willing to go the extra mile for her patients. They show her, she's very compassionate, towards the women that are giving birth that she's helping and stuff like that. And she has a really sweet 5-year-old daughter named Leela, who's played by AJ Lister. And Celia is raising her daughter as a single mother. I guess they mentioned in there that she wanted a kid and she didn't have a husband or boyfriend or whatever, so she just went and got IVF. So she's been raising her on her own, and apparently that's the way she wants it. So these two women, Rose and Celia, they work in the same hospital, but up to this point have never met. However, that is all about to change. So the first act of the movie pretty efficiently sets up these women's very different lives, their very different personalities, and the different ways that other people react to them. Celia, obviously, because she's very warm and generous and everything like that, everybody loves her because she's an awesome person, and she just dotes on this little girl that she has, who she clearly adores. Rose, on the other hand, very curt, very austere, and it seems like her colleagues are kind of a little bit afraid of her. And I can't say I really blame them, even though I kind of get where she's coming from. But yeah, she's a little bit intimidating. Now, in the first act, near the beginning of the movie, we kind of get a hint that maybe something a little weird is going on in Rose's life. Because there's a scene of her and she's sitting in a bar And this guy kind of asked to buy her a drink or whatever. And, he's just kind of like a schlumpy, like middle-aged dude or whatever. And she basically straight up propositions him like, hey, I'm going to give you a hand job in the bathroom. Like, okay. And he's just like, okay. Like, obviously he's going to accept, but he's kind of nervous about it, as I guess you would be. But once they're in there, like, he doesn't seem all that bothered by her very business-like execution. I mean, pretty much all he says is, I don't have any money. And she's like, I don't want any money. So she basically, like, collects his semen in a jar and just crisply says, okay, thanks, bye. And, like, good day. It's, like, pretty weird. So later on, so that she's up to something. Later on, we see her kind of, like, turkey bastering, like, the semen into herself. So at first, you're led to believe, oh, well, maybe she just wants a kid, and this is the most fuss-free, logical way to accomplish that without having to, like, get into a messy relationship or anything like that. As the story goes on, though, we discover what her intentions are with this situation, and let's say that they're just, like, a lot more uncomfortable than just, like, simple motherhood. So one morning, Celia's daughter, Leela, claims that she isn't feeling well and wants to stay home from school. Now, Celia is not really wanting to do this because she's kind of heard the song and dance before, you know what I mean? And she's kind of stressed out. She overslept, she's late for work. But Leela is just adamant. She does not want to go to school. She doesn't feel good. So, kind of grudgingly, Celia drops the girl off at her neighbor Pauline's apartment, who, it's implied has watched the girl before. And because Leela is having like a little bit of a tantrum, like when her mom is leaving, Celia kind of deliberately withholds like a goodbye hug and kiss and stuff. She's like, nope, just going because you're being a brat. And this is a decision that will end up haunting her, let's call it that, by the end of the day. So Celia ends up having this really hectic shift, and then in the afternoon, she gets a call from Pauline, but before she can answer it, like, she accidentally drops her phone in the toilet. We've been there. And it kind of makes it go on the fritz. And Celia, at this point, she's kind of pissed off, but she's also kind of relieved that the phone went out. I mean, she later says it's kind of like a little vacation from the constant messages and obligations and all that kind of stuff, However, when Celia gets back to her building, Pauline and Leela are gone. They're not in the apartment. And there's just, all that's there is this really hastily scribbled note left behind about Leela's really sick and I had to take her to the hospital. So Celia rushes back to the hospital where she just came from. But tragically, it's too late. Her daughter has died of bacterial meningitis. Now, meanwhile, Rose gets Leela's body in the morgue, and she decides that this dead child will be perfect for her latest experiment. So she fudges some paperwork, stuffs the little girl's body into a suitcase, and kind of hightails it out to the parking garage. But because Rose acts so kind of rude and weird to Celia, like when Celia goes down asking to see her daughter's remains, Rose is pretty much the first person that Celia suspects when, the hospital administrators or whatever tell her that Leela's body mysteriously went missing. It also so happened that Celia had seen Rose putting like an obviously very heavy suitcase like in the back of her car in the parking garage, so she kind of like put two and two together. So Celia like follows Rose back to her place and discovers, to her combined horror and wonder, I guess also, that Rose has brought Leela back from the dead. As I said, this is kind of based on Frankenstein. I mean, obviously she's kind of outraged at first, but then Celia, who's kind of, works in the medical field herself, she kind of becomes intrigued by Rose's work and is obviously heartened by the prospect of having her beloved daughter back again. So Celia basically strong arms her way into moving in with Rose. With it, I don't think she says outright that it's like, hey, I'm going to tell everybody what you did if you don't let me do this. But I think that's kind of like the implication. So she moves in, and the two women kind of start working together on keeping Leela alive and like monitoring the experiment. And it's kind of interesting, like I said, because they're really kind of polar opposites. But as it goes on, their reactions to things become kind of similar, you know what I mean? But they're reacting that way like for different reasons, if that makes any sense. So Rose explains to Celia that she had previously brought a pig named Muriel back to life. And the pig seems to be doing pretty good, kind of, despite having died a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? She's kind of like snuffling around the apartment. It's a real big pig, you know, kind of just being a pig, like around the apartment, like nothing happened. And she's super cute. And something bad happens to the pig, so don't get too attached. There is a whole catch in this situation, though, as obviously there would be. The serum that Rose invented for the maintenance of her reanimated subjects needs fetal tissue that is compatible with that subject. So Rose, as it turns out, remember the whole hand job in the bathroom thing, like from the beginning? Well, she's been impregnating herself for just this reason, to make her own fetal tissue, like to use for the serum, right? Now, she ends up telling Celia that it's like a 1 in a million coincidence that the tissue that she produced worked for Leela. And I thought the implication was, and I could be misreading this, I thought the implication was the reason that she took like Leela's body specifically was because she knew the rundown of it and she said, oh, this would probably be compatible, you know, with my serum. You know what I mean? So it could have been that too. It might not have just been a coincidence. But as the story goes on, once the serum runs out and something happens where Rose can't make any more, the two women have to resort to a lot more unethical means to keep Leela from dying again. So, as I mentioned, this was a remarkably good film. Like, it's a really good psychological horror. It went to some pretty dark places. It's not a bloodbath. Like, it's not like super, super gory. But I will say, if you're kind of squicked out by autopsy stuff or pregnancy related type of gore, that kind of stuff, then you might want to give this one a pass. Because it is, like I said, it's medical horror. The story actually didn't play out the way I expected it to, which was actually like a nice surprise. And I was really on board with how twisted it got, like as the women started edging deeper and deeper into monstrousness. And that was all engendered by the love of Leela, at least from Celia's point of view, because obviously that's her mom, and kind of the unwillingness to let her go. And it was interesting, too, how they played the two women off each other, because obviously Celia had her own reasons for wanting Leela alive, because obviously she loves her, that's her daughter. But Rose also had her own reasons because, you know, she's a scientist and she was fascinated by this experiment. So they were both, like, working together for a common goal just for very, very different reasons. And I thought that was interesting how they played those two character traits off of each other. So I'm going to say, if you're interested in seeing, like, a somewhat, it's not super disturbing, but it's slightly disturbing kind of take on the Frankenstein story, but kind of told from a female perspective of, you know, pregnancy and motherhood, then, you know, you might kind of dig this. I thought it was very, very good. You know, and I can see why it got a lot of, you know, positive press and stuff. It kind of tackles all kind of interesting facets of motherhood, as well as being like a mad scientist story as well. So as of this recording, April of 2024, it's streaming on Shudder, at least in the US. And if you like medical-themed body horror, like I said, maybe something like David Cronenberg or something like that, then it's definitely worth a watch. So check it out if it sounds at all interesting. That'll do it for this Flickers of Fear. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that business. And I will see you guys again on the next one. Bye.